All right, welcome back to ReSpark Fitness Motivation. And in this episode, this course is all about mindfulness and nutrition. So, every single one of these courses moving forward will apply the principles of course 5. And again, essentially the baseline course for or excuse me, the baseline principle for course 5 is established as space. We must create space. And when we create a space, we create a difference. Those two things that we utilize will allow us to create in groups and out groups. Out groups are called categories. Once we have these categories, we're going to be able to see ourselves differently, but the purpose of us seeing these things differently is to establish our different interests. Sometimes you like strawberry, sometimes you like strawberry bananas, sometimes you like strawberry banana orange. You can start to see the differences because you know you don't like strawberry mango. These changes and differences will allow us to see the variety of life we can live with. And when we have the strategy of understanding we have a variety of options, then we will always have an openness to ourselves. That means a different part of ourselves can motivate another different part of ourselves or control or check or guide. We can be in faith that we are truly trying to help thy neighbor. And thy neighbor is that neighboring space that we have identified with a certain amount of difference in between. Might be a little bit of difference, might be a lot of bit of difference. Instead of strawberry, banana, mango, I might have spinach and artichoke juice. Like, that's drastically different, right? So that's the whole idea. We're using our mindset to see what is good for us, what is bad for us, but we're realizing that these are contexts of just small bits of change. I don't like this in this form, but I like it over here in that form. You might not juice your spinach, but you will eat it. These are the changes that you need to understand because it allows you to feel more powerful with your ability to stay motivated. Your psychology says that if I don't like it, can I receive it? That's the idea. I'm training my brain to realize that I can receive it, and then I can realize that I don't even need to like it to receive it, which will process it a different way. We can allow ourselves to process the same stimuli in different ways if we're mindful. So let's get into a little bit of mindfulness. Okay. We want to jump into this course so we can really see how we can view ourselves change and we can view ourselves. So, mindful eating and nutrition. The first things first is you got to know the ideas of what you have already jumped up are trying to come out of you. It is crucial for you to understand the variety of what your body needs in order to really produce an avenue for these thoughts to move forward with. Moving forward is going to help us understand what we liked in the past versus different, what was good versus not. Imagine going to a restaurant and getting a flight of sodas. You have a whole bunch of different options. That's what the flight aspect. That means it's going from one thing to the next to the next. It's in a constant change. That allows us to produce a new space. That is the beautiful part about finding a new interest. You have a zero space and you can put in a brand new idea. Yeah, I was a kid and I never used to eat tomatoes, but then, one day I had like a new kind of tomato. It was called a cherry tomato, and you know what? It was pretty good, So, yeah, I didn't like the big tomatoes as a kid, but I'll try these small ones as a 35-year-old. whatever. The idea is that you are mindful enough to see more details about that thing called interest. I like this, I don't like that. You now have identified two separate spaces. Now you can create more details like a Venn diagram, a web bubble, a thought bubble. Here's your core concept. Do I like strawberry milk? Yes, I like it. No, I don't. Those two spaces of yes and no can now have details. Let's talk about it. No, why not? You can start to understand reasons as to what created that negative sensation about that topic called strawberry milk. When we decide, okay, this is for me or it isn't for me, you should be able to create a space that says, I'm willing to try or not. If you're not, close the circle and utilize a new opportunity. If you're open, open the circle and repeat. The idea is that you can constantly create these spaces of new details. We can always detail something out. Just got to be prepared for how it wants to express that detail and how it proliferates in your life. Let's move forward. Macronutrients. These are your basics. We talked about this before in chapter 3, I believe. But this idea is these are the big the big nutritions. It's don't think about it as anything but that. This is thinking about protein not on the microscopic level, but at the macro. Again, instead of just saying it's a protein, start to get a little bit more detail. This is lean protein. This is this 93%. This is 85%. This is a chuck cut. This is a shoulder cut. This is a top sirloin. And if you're not into that, guess what? It's okay because the same rules apply. This is not just a bean. This is a navy bean. This is a lima bean. This is, a black bean. These are different types of the category that we understood. So when you say things like, I don't like beans, that psychology is limiting to more parts of you that actually would really enjoy, you know, a pinto bean chili kind of thing. If you say you don't like beans because you ate some lima beans one time and they were like super hard and steamed and nobody like cooked them correctly, you would say, I don't like beans. These are beans. Oh no, every time I hear the word beans, I'm not going to like them. But if you were introduced with, oh, those are lima beans, it's in the bean family. Well, oh, I don't like lima beans. They don't taste good. Well, try this other bean. Okay, you have to be that way with yourself. You got to have that psychology to say, okay, I'm going to be the mom and I'm going to listen to my baby, whatever the heck they're saying, they're screaming, they're talking, they're excited, or they're mad, they're not talking. I'm going to receive it, I'm going to observe it, I'm going to see what's going on. And then I got to take the daddy side to it. What can I do to help this out? Oh, you crying because your juice fell? Well, what can we do? Let's figure it out. Well, if you put juice in there the first time, can you do it another time? Yeah. Do we got enough? No. Should we go to the store? Look, we can help ourselves by having more details. We're asking questions, but we're putting ourselves in a position to where we can be mindful of the thoughts that we're going to generate. If you can create a script, you can allow yourself to flow along the script. That means no matter what movie pops up, you know that you're going to have a certain way to communicate with yourself. So whether it's good or bad, you know that you're going to be supported by something. You will always have your own back. You're mindful of that. So if you have an experience and you try some food and you really wanted to have it and it was just really not good, and then you go in for a second and third assessment, you're allowing yourself the freedom to continue to explore whether it likes it or not. You're giving yourself different reasons, different details. Maybe that was just like the corner piece. Let me go for a centerpiece. Maybe it was the frosting. Let me take the frosting off and let me just eat the cake part. Uh, Nah, bro, this is just this is just not for me. You see that you got different varieties of try and assessment, but even if a lot of you was just like, nah, bro, this is not it. But then you just had those little inklings of let me try again, let me try again. Let yourself again go on for that third, fourth, fifth, sixth assessment, but realize what you're gaining. And at the end of the day, you be mindful enough to say, I'm sorry, I just don't like catfish, but I'll take this snapper over here. So, explore these things called macros. Utilize these ideas of what we call in proteins, fats, and carbs to now explore what it means to have a protein, fat, or carb. I like these because look, none of these things look the same. So when you're going to the grocery store and you're being mindful of what you're shopping for, yes, you need tomatoes, but could you try a different one? Yes, you always go and get potatoes, but instead of getting russet, can you get some Idahos? Maybe a red potato, maybe some yams. Can you do something new? What variety can you utilize with life if you're just a little bit more mindful? That is what we're at. This is what this chapter is trying to help us understand. This is why it's so important for us to realize how important it is to see, how important it is to see ourselves and see ourselves change. I'm sorry. Okay. As we go through, you're going to start to understand the differences between these macros, and then you're going to want to start to build physical routines around these things that sustain us. What comes out of our mouths is just as important as the things that go into our mouths. It is important for us to understand that. So, guess what? We can control that by having a balanced diet. This balanced diet comes from you balancing the different needs inside of you. So we all need, let's say, vitamin A. If you can start to understand the different ways that you can obtain your vitamin A, then you can understand the different macros that provide you vitamin A, and then you can just explore. And then you can just look at the ingredients that you have for your normal everyday routines and then just start swapping things in and out. It's all about trying things because guess what? By you exploring yourself will allow you to explore your interests, which will allow you to explore the ways that you can make changes on the easy things, which will give you a motivation for creating a change for the hard things. It'll help you keep yourself going because you realize that you can. And then you got good energy associated with those positive I can make a change statements. And guess what? You got evidence and you got history. You have a lot of support, but you have to be mindful of that. And you got to practice being mindful of those things, especially when you're creating a change for the long term. That's where we're at. Chapters 1 through 5 is just looking at change and just getting back on. But here, we're preparing to do things for the long term. So each of these steps need to be understood because they're going to repeat. The world isn't going to look the same. But that is why we're trying to create variety for ourselves so we can be okay with handling things in constant change, constant flux. We're being mindful of the constant flux that already occurs now called time, life, and change. So if we can start to jump and align with those changes of the divine, then we can start to see how we can be balanced within ourselves and then all selves that we become and appreciative of the self that we were. When you explore different places, you start to see that there is always a variety. There's never one thing. And so this picture shows you that you can go to any store, any market, and you can see that there's always going to be multiple resources. Do you have the knowledge and the mindfulness to obtain the resources to try something new? That should be a challenge for yourself because you might be surprised at some of the things you would find out. Wow, I did not know that I really like to create noodles. I would have never known if I didn't ever try this grain. I'm glad I picked up this grain and I picked up my regular noodles. Excellent. I found something new. It's my new favorite. A lot of us take the time to do these things based upon recommendations of others. And this is a wonderful segue into chapters 7, Course A, and Course B. We need options. We need change. But how you obtain that will help you understand if you want to maintain those changes or not. So if you are in this good fat range, let's say, and you're doing all the things that you enjoy, but then you also are doing all the things you see in these bad fat range, and guess what? You're starting to see that there's easy swaps, but there's hard swaps. Like nothing in the world in this good fat section would ever replace a donut. Nothing would ever replace this ice cream. So we gotta start to see different ways of us incorporating these things that are good and healthy for us, the things that are so-called bad for us, but they're good for other parts, like my taste buds, or it makes me feel better, or it's nice as a moment to go, with my kids or my family, or my friend recommended something new and a new dish, and so I tried it. It's allowing you to see more. And it's really cool because when you really appreciate people for their differences, you can value those differences. And this is seen like with culture. Like, I know that you got to understand things are standardized across the world. Be mindful of that because when you realize that you can go from any country and you can get, let's say, an apple, there's all kinds of apples, but these apples are different from those apples, but they're still in that category. So what would you do? Would you try the apple and be like, "Wow, this is tart and bitter. This has nothing to do," or would you just say no? Would you experience that potential emotion of like going through something, let's say that's not very fulfilling, it's bad in that moment, so then you say it's not for you. Would are you willing to go through that? Would you be willing to spend, let's say, some money on a dish of something brand new, something that the waiter offered, and say, oh, I'm sorry. I just can't. There's a something that's in there that's just really not for me. Would you be willing to take that risk to say, hey, I don't know what I want. I would try anything, but I am kind of weary that if I don't want it, I gotta pay for something that I didn't want. You might be surprised. The waiter might say, hey, if you don't like it, we'll get you another meal. Get you something new. Would you be upset if there's a say you only get one more try now? How would you respond? These situations of us so-called overthinking, they're allowing us to have a variety of means of responses. But the idea is to not get caught up in analysis paralysis. The idea is to be in a constant flux of change. Seeing what is good versus bad, when it's good versus when it isn't. This allows us to create different portions. Portions of what you're doing will allow you to create changes in how you allow yourself to see the difference that has been made within the change. It helps you like zone into your point of view. So, in other words, are burgers really bad for me? I don't really feel bad eating them, but sometimes, things are difficult. Okay. Well, is it the burger or is it the fact that you're eating, four patties? Like, maybe that might be the issue. It's just meat and cheese. Okay, cool. That's cool sometimes, but like, maybe you might need to do other things for yourself. Maybe change the bun. Maybe you can add some lettuce, tomato, or different veggie, or maybe you can try some kind of difference. Maybe it's just a matter of having less. What we can do is by us allowing ourselves to be mindful of the changes that we want to enact, the details can start to shrink. In other words, we don't need to continue to gather more information. If enough of us, enough parts of yourself, is saying no to the situation, then guess what? You have enough information to say this is not for me. So being mindful of the things that you want versus being mindful of the things that you need, it will expand behind more parts of your life. Seeing the differences of knowing whether you need more iron in your system versus not will help you understand the foods that you need to eat at the certain times that you need them. And then you can start to jump into looking at other details and how they create macro visualizations of themselves. How does a seed grow into a tree so you can understand both? How do I see it? How do I be mindful enough to even be aware enough? Because the details can slip us by if we don't even know what we're looking for. This is what we're looking at in regards to mindful eating and nutrition. We want to give ourselves an opportunity to explore categories of what is already available. It doesn't matter if you agree with systems or not, you are okay with it because it's going to change. I didn't mind doing the things that I needed to do as a teacher who was always on the road going from school to school. I didn't mind that. I love the fact that I can make kids feel like we've been here together all year and then make sure they understand that it's up to them to make that difference because I did nothing different from what anybody else. Yeah, you can give me some details of why you enjoy me more than other people, but at the end of the day, you are more of a pleasure yourself, so respect the fact that you can be cool too. And just remind yourself it doesn't matter who's out in front of you, what value can you gain? Are you mindful? So let's start off with being mindful with our food. If you need more information, again, you can check out our Self Motivation Kit. You can check out Soul Spark Radio if you need to digest more mental, intellectual, and stimulating ways to really try to understand the variety that I'm speaking to you. And obviously, you can check out any of our other products, which will help you understand yourself and give you the tools to become more mindful of that self that you're understanding. So, I'm Mr. Colin New, and this is your fitness motivation course lecture. All right, see you next time.